بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا ومولانا محمد وبارك وسلم أما بعد. So we have completed all of the chapters regarding purification, the necessary type of purification that we would need when we wake up in the morning. And now we're going to start with the adab of going to the masjid. Adab al-khuruj ila al-masjid. So Imam al-Ghazali continues, فَإِذَا فَرَغْتَ مِنْ طَهَرَتِكَ فَصَلِّ فِي بَيْتِكَ رَكْعَتَيِ الْفَجْرِ إِنْ كَانَ الْفَجْرُ قَدْ طَلَعَ. After having woken up, recited the du'as, using the khala, the restroom, purifying ourselves, performing wudu or ghusl or tayammum, whatever the case may be, then perform two rak'ahs in your home, the two rak'ahs of fajr. So the two rak'ahs of fajr, we all know is the two rak'ahs that precede salatul fajr, before salatul fajr, if the time for fajr has come in. So we need to perform that. كذلك كان يفعل رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, because the Rasulullah صلى الله عليه وسلم used to perform the two rak'ahs of fajr at home. ثم توجه إلى المسجد. So after having done that, the sunan, perform it at home. This is the case with all of the sunan, preferably they should be performed at home. So there is permission that a person can perform them in the masjid. There's no problem with that. However, it's ideal that the masajid, we do the fara'id in the masajid, and then we can perform our sunnah at home. That is kind of it. When we come home, we do our, so the same thing here for Salatul Fajr. Then after you do the two rak'ahs, go to the masjid, uh, leave the home to go to the masjid. وَلَا تَدَعِي الصَّلَاةِ فِي جَمَاعَةٍ, and don't leave out salah in jama'ah. So you should perform the salah in jama'ah. That is the part of iqamatul salah. When we hear the term وَأَقِيمُوا salah in the Quran, this is part of it. A major part of it is actually performing in jama'ah. لَا سِيَمَا صَلَاةِ الصُّبْحِ, especially try your best to perform the fajr salah in jama'ah. And this is because you want to start your day in the best manner as well. So he's saying especially the morning one. So what makes the morning salah different than the other salawat? Number one, it's a salah in which the qira'ah is meant to be longer. So we know there's different durations of qira'ah for the different salawat. So depending on which salah it is, like for instance, Salatul Maghrib is also out loud, but the duration of the qira'ah, the recitation that will take place, is supposed to be less. Then Isha is longer. Salatul Fajr is the longest. So a person will enjoy listening to the recitation in the morning for a longer duration. And it's a beautiful way to start one's day. فصلاة الجماعة تفضل صلاة الفذ ب27 درجة. Performing salah in jama'ah is greater than performing salah by oneself by 27 times. So this is a huge way to maximize reward. We hear this all the time that certain actions will multiply the reward than if it was done in a different way. But does it really click in our minds? Right? We have the information, but this kitab is not about information. We're trying to study this for the sake of amal. So if you try to put this into amal, then we need to really understand, really ponder over this fact that if I did Salatul Fajr with Jama'ah today, then that equals to a whole month of Salatul Fajr. So if a person is performing their salawat in the masajid, then the reward is like for every single one. Like if you do your 5 times salah in the masjid for one full day, that equates a person who is performing salah at home for a month. So that's how much value there is in just performing salah in the masjid. Now we should bear this in mind that this reward is already for the sisters when they perform at home. So there is a different reward for the brothers and the sisters. So the sisters automatically get this reward just by performing salah at home. Because in the hadith we see that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that the reward for the sisters is that by performing salah in home in the most secluded portion in their homes, that is the best type of salah for them. So the most reward for a sister would be the opposite of the male. So like a man, a brother would go to the masjid, they get this reward. The sister, by performing the salah at home, they get the highest level of rewards as well. Not to say that their rewards is decreased by going to the masjid, but it is better to perform in at the home. We don't really know, like, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam didn't say it's decreased by going to the masjid. He just said that the best for the sisters is at home. So we know that, and then the best is this 27 times reward. So a sister performing at home definitely is going to be more rewardable. And the reason for this is because for the sisters being at home, being in the safety of the home and being in seclusion is considered is part of the ibadah itself. Um, if they're coming to the masjid because the khatam is taking place, there is some reason, listening to the khutbah, learning, any of these reasons, it's completely fine as well. But they're not commanded to come to the masjid. That's why Salatul Jumu'ah is not compulsory on the sisters or children. It's only compulsory on the males that are baligh, the adults. And this is why, because the sisters have a concession, and this shouldn't be looked at as something that, looking down on the sisters. This is actually a concession from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave that to us, gave it to the brothers, that you don't have to come to the masjid, just pray at home, it would be a concession, it would be a favor. So it is a favor upon the sisters that they don't have to worry about it. They could wake up in the perform Salatul Fajr in awwal waqt, when the time first sets in, and then they can go back to sleep and just enjoy their sleep. Or they can wake up late, right before Fajr is over, 20 minutes before it's over, perform the Salatul Fajr as well, and then they will get the same reward as a brother going into, driving, going to the masjid, all of that. So he doesn't mention about the sisters, so I just mentioned that. So then he says, فَإِن كُنْتَ تَتَسَاهَلُ فِي مِثْلِ هَذَا الرِّبْحِ فَأَيُّ فَائِدَةٍ لَكَ فِي طَلَبِ الْعِلْمِ. So he is basically reprimanding us, and he's saying that if you are lazy in gaining this type of profit, meaning going to the masjid and performing salah in jama'ah, if you're so lazy that you can't do that, then what benefit is there in you seeking knowledge? So this is something very, we all have the knowledge that going to the masjid and performing salah in jama'ah is rewardable. We have the knowledge, but do we put that into practice? So this is what he's saying. He's saying that what benefit is there in knowledge if you're not going to put it into practice? If we learn the du'as of wudu, how to perform wudu, but we don't do it, then what benefit will there be? And we should also note there's two aspects here. There's one is performing salah in jama'ah. The other one is going to the masjid. Both of these are separate, and when done together, they earn the highest level of reward. So a person can theoretically perform jama'ah at home. So much so that if a man is alone and his wife is at home, then if they perform salah together, then the man gets the reward, and both of them get the reward for salah with jama'ah. It's sunnah mu'akkada for the male. It's not compulsory or not, binding on the females, like I mentioned, but they will get the reward if the male leads and his wife is praying behind, or his mother or sister or anyone like that. If they're having jama'ah, and of course with other males, if you have jama'ah, you get the reward for jama'ah even at home. There's a reward of the masjid, which is, so there's two aspects here. You can still get the 27 times reward because Salatul Jama'ah, doing it at home, but you get even more by going to the masjid. And it says, وَإِنَّمَا ثَمَرَةُ الْعِلْمِ الْعَمَلُ بِهِ. The fruit of knowledge is practice. So we're getting the knowledge, but we want the fruit. We want the fruit, and that is practice. That is what we're trying to get. If somehow Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created a human and he already had all the knowledge and he just goes and he does the amal according to the knowledge, then he already has the maqsood. He has the purpose and he's fulfilled his objective. Like he doesn't have to worry about gaining knowledge. He already gets the amal. That's all that is required. But since we're not like that, we need to gain the knowledge and then put it into practice. So the actual thing in life is practice, not the acquisition of knowledge. Acquisition of knowledge is only good because it leads to the action at the end. And it says, إذا سعيت إلى المسجد فامشي على هينة وتؤدة ولا تعجل. When you go to the masjid, walk very calmly, walk with tranquility, don't rush. So now we have, different types of, I'm sure he would have said the same thing about riding a horse. Don't rush to the masjid. For us, don't rush driving to the masjid. If you're late, and you need to get there on time, Jama'ah is starting in 5 minutes and you're 10 minutes away. Don't rush. Don't drive fast. Inshallah, go slowly. Go, normally with tranquility. You will still get the reward of Jama'ah. You don't have to rush, right? That's putting us in danger as well. There's different hadith when Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says, if you see that the Imam is already in Salah and you're, a distance away, and you feel like by the time I get there, he's going to be already in sajda, then just walk. Whatever you find with the Imam, complete it with the Imam. Whatever you miss, do qada of it. Don't run. So we are reprimanded from running to the masjid. And there's so much hikmah behind this because a Muslim has to have a lot of waqar, self-respect, dignity. Imagine a fully grown man just it doesn't behoove a believer to run like that or to rush. We rush, and it is from shaitan. Tranquility is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Peace and tranquility, taking your time, going slow, not going too slow, but going at a good pace. That's from Allah. And rushing is from shaitan. Notice we make the most mistakes when we rush. So that's why I'm saying that, don't rush when driving. Inshallah, everything will be okay. Take your time and then get to the masjid in a nice and tranquil pace. And then he says a dua. What dua to recite when we're on the road? وَقُلْ فِي طَرِيقِكَ. And this will apply to us when we're driving to the masjid, or even when we get out of our car, we're walking to the masjid, or if anyone's close by, they're walking to the masjid. You can recite this dua. اللهم إني أسألك بحق السائلين عليك وبحق الراغبين إليك وبحق ممشاي هذا إليك فإني لم أخرج أشرا ولا بطرا ولا رياء ولا سمعة بل خرجت اتقاء سخطك وابتغاء مرضاتك فأسألك أن تنقذني من النار وأن تدخلني الجنة وأن تغفر لي ذنوبي فإنه لا يغفر الذنوب إلا أنت. The translation of this dua: Oh Allah, I ask you with the rights of those who ask you. Meaning, I know that you answer people's du'as. I'm one of those people who is asking you du'as right now. I'm asking you in that relationship that I have with you, oh Allah. You answer the du'as and I make the du'as. I'm making a du'a. وَبِحَقِّ الرَّاغِبِينَ إِلَيْكَ. And I'm making a du'a. I'm one of those who have desire to please you, just like all of those other great people who desire to please you. I'm one of them, and I'm making dua to you right now. وَبِحَقِّ مَمْشَايَ هَذَا إِلَيْكَ. And I'm asking you, if you have accepted this walking of mine to the masjid, then I'm asking you, with that pleasure that you have with me walking towards the masjid, please answer this dua. So as I'm walking, I'm saying this dua. فَإِنِّي لَمْ أَخْرُجْ أَشَرًا وَلَا بَطَرًا وَلَا رِيَاءً وَلَا سُمْعَةً. I didn't leave my house disobedient. I left my house in obedience to you. And I did not leave my house with arrogance. Rather, I'm humble. And I didn't leave my house showing off. Rather, I am complete ikhlas. And I didn't leave my house trying to get name and fame from others. I left my house because I fear your anger. وَابْتِغَاءَ مَرْضَاتِكَ. And I have left my house in search of your pleasure. فَأَسْأَلُكَ أَن تُنْقِذَنِي مِنَ النَّارِ. So I ask you, O Allah, save me from the fire of Jahannam. وَأَن تُدْخِلَنِي الْجَنَّةِ. And I ask you, O Allah, enter me into your Jannah. وَأَن تَغْفِرَ لِي ذُنُوبِي. And وأن تغفر لي ذنوبي, and that you forgive my sins. فإنه لا يغفر الذنوب إلا أنت, because there's no one that can forgive sins except for you. It's a very beautiful dua. We're asking Allah to look at our actions and to really accept us. Yesterday, a brother was asking me about wasila, and it is a very beautiful thing. Even though we don't have time to discuss wasila, but this is a type of wasila. Um, it means that you have done something good and you're asking Allah to answer your du'as based off of the previous good that you have done. So Allah, I love Muhammad. For my love for Muhammad, and that is a great ibadah to love Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Answer my du'a because of the love that I have for Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Oh Allah, I'm walking to the masjid. For every step, one sin is getting erased, one good deed is being written. For every single step that I'm doing, these are good actions. Answer my du'a. So this is a type of thing that is done. It's called the type of wasila, meaning using actions as a means to get the rahmah and the mercy of Allah. This is a very beautiful dua. So this is coming out of the house, going to the masjid itself. Now, adab dukhul al-masjid ila tulu'i shams. The etiquettes of entering the masjid for Salatul Fajr up until sunrise. So from entering Fajr time till sunrise, all of the different etiquettes of that time period. فإذا أردت دخول المسجد فقدم رجلك اليمنى وقل. When you are going to the masjid, make sure that the right foot enters the masjid first. And we already discussed about right and left in the beginning, washing, and at the end he'll talk about how to go to sleep, all of these things. We always favor the right side when it comes to favorable actions, and the left side is utilized for unfavorable things such as entering the restroom, etc., or the secondary thing, leaving the masjid, for instance. So when entering the masjid, we walk in, the first foot must be the right foot, inshallah. This is the sunnah of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And say the dua, and say first the salawat, salah ala nabi, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad wa sallim. So whichever salah you want to recite upon Rasulullah, then the first thing, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad, when you enter with the right foot. Then Allahumma ghfir li dhunubi waftah li abwaba rahmatik. O Allah, forgive my sins and open up for me the doors of your mercy. There's different du'as. We probably have memorized a different du'a. Allahumma ftah li abwaba rahmatik. That's also fine. So what this means is when you're entering the masjid doors are open for you, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to enter. The masjid door is open. And at the same time, remember, with all of these du'as, we're doing something physical, but we're reminded of something spiritual. So we're saying, oh Allah, open the doors, the many different doors of your rahmah as I'm entering into the masjid. Because in the masjid, where the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is showering down upon us. There's so many malaika in the masjid, there's so much khair in the masjid. That's why we're not supposed to talk about dunyawi affairs in the masjid, not supposed to argue in the masjid, not even supposed to have any kind of business transactions in the masjid itself, because this is a place of rahmah. So we want to attract the rahmah of Allah. This is where we get it. So we're asking Allah, open up those doors of the rahmah. وَمَهْمَا رَأَيْتَ فِي الْمَسْجِدِ مَنْ يَبِيعُ فَقُلْ لَا أَرْبَحَ اللَّهُ تِجَارَتَكَ. When you see someone who is selling things in the masjid, say to them, لَا أَرْبَحَ اللَّهُ تِجَارَتَكَ. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not give you profit in your business. So it's a type of anti-dua. You're making dua against a person because they're selling in the business in the masjid. They're making the masjid, which is the house of Allah, they're making it a house of profit. So such a person, if you see them selling things in the masjid itself, say, لا أربح الله تجارتك. وإذا رأيت من ينشد فيه ضالة فقل لا رد الله عليك ضالتك. When you see someone who's calling to people and he's saying that I lost my thing, whatever it may be, have you seen it? Have you seen it? That's the purpose they've gone into the masjid for. So they're not doing ibadah. They went into the masjid to ask people, have you seen my item? So say to this person, La raddallahu alayka dhallatak, may Allah not give you your missed item. So it's an anti-dua. كذلك أمر رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. So this Imam al-Ghazali is saying, this is in the hadith, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said this. So what we should understand from this is that is business transactions 100% haram in the masjid? It really depends. We know during the laws of i'tikaf, and that is coming up soon, the time for i'tikaf, that a person can do a verbal business transaction, but not with money. That is something we should not do in the masjid. Masjid is a house of Allah. It's not meant for business transactions. Regarding a person that lost something, if they lost it in the masjid, then yes, they have to go and they have to ask the imam, or someone who is in charge, did you see my phone or my keys? I lost them. But this is a person who goes into the masjid and he starts announcing in front of people, and he probably lost something somewhere else, and he's saying that, I lost my thing, using the masjid as a platform to have everyone in one place to make an announcement. That is not, you know, in connection with the masjid. So when we do this, this is not proper. Whatever is regarding the masjid should be done in the masjid. Anything outside of dini affairs, that should be done outside. So, and then فَإِذَا فَرَغْتَ مِنَ الرَّكْعَتَيْنِ. So now we have come into the masjid, and okay, so then he says, فَإِذَا دَخَلْتَ الْمَسْجِدْ فَلَا تَجْلِسْ حَتَّى تُصَلِّيَ رَكْعَتَيِ التَّحِيَّةِ. When you enter the masjid, then don't sit down until you perform 2 rak'ahs of Salatul Tahiyya. Salatul Tahiyya, or we say Tahiyatul Masjid. When you enter the masjid, there's a type of greeting for the masjid itself. Because it's such a holy place, type of sanctuary, then we perform 2 rak'ahs as a type of hello to the masjid itself. And then we're praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, thanking Him for the ni'mah of allowing us to come into the masjid. So this is called Tahiyatul Masjid. Imam al-Ghazali here says that, in our situation, we pray 2 rak'ahs at home, come to the masjid, and then pray another 2 rak'ah for Tahiyatul Masjid. As for the Hanafi madhab, as I'm aware, we should not perform any other salah other than the 2 rak'ahs of pre-Fajr, which is a sunnah mu'akkada. So we should not pray any other salawat, even if it be Tahiyatul Masjid. Perhaps in the Shafi'i madhab, it is okay to do so. But if you're following the Hanafi madhab, you should avoid in this time, Fajr time, to do the 2 rak'ahs of Tahiyatul Masjid. Other salawat, you can perform the Tahiyatul Masjid. Also, if you come into the masjid and perform a sunnah salawat, whatever sunnah salah there is, let's say 4 rak'ahs before Salatul Isha, 4 rak'ahs before Asr. If you do that, it counts for the Tahiyatul Masjid. So it's 2 and 1. So you come and it's a Dhuhr Salah, you perform 4 rak'ahs before sitting down, and you got the reward for the Sunnah of the Dhuhr and the Tahiyatul Masjid. If you don't do it and you just do the 2 rak'ahs of Tahiyatul Masjid, that's also fine. If you want to do the 2 rak'ahs Tahiyatul Masjid and the Sunnah after that, that's also fine. And any other time during the day, if it's not a makruh time period, there are 3 different makruh time periods. Other than that, if you enter the masjid and it's not time for salah, then you can do tahiyatul masjid then also. So this is a type of salah that we can perform. فإن لم تكن صليت في بيتك ركعتي الفجر فيجزئك أداؤهما عن التحية. So he's saying that if you didn't perform the 2 rak'ahs of Fajr at home, then performing them now will count for the tahiyya. So what he's saying that, say for instance, a person did not perform 2 rak'ahs salatul, the sunnah mu'akkada of Fajr at home, and you've come to the masjid, then just by performing those 2 sunnah mu'akkadas before the salatul Fajr in the masjid, it will cover the sunnah and it'll cover the tahiyyatul masjid, just like what I mentioned now. So now after that, فإذا فرغت من الركعتين, when you have completed the 2, فنوي الاعتكاف, make niyyah for i'tikaf. Now this is really important. We don't do this often. I myself, I forget often, and I have the knowledge, but I forget. So I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to remind me, to remind all to do this, a beautiful action. Make niyyah for i'tikaf. وَدْعُوا بِمَا دَعَا بِهِ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم بعد ركعتي الفجر. Okay, so first thing is i'tikaf. How do we do this? The dua for making niyyah of i'tikaf, there's no real dua. You can say, Allahumma inni nawaitul i'tikaf ma dumtu fil masjid. Oh Allah, I make niyyah of i'tikaf as long as I am in the masjid. So this is a nafal i'tikaf. Yes, there is a nafal i'tikaf. We all associate i'tikaf with the necessary i'tikaf, the sunnah mu'akkada, which is done in the last 10 days of Ramadan. But i'tikaf can be done at any time for any duration of time. So on a daily basis in Ramadan, we're coming for Taraweeh. We're in the masjid for a good hour at least, more than that. So i'tikaf is such a beautiful ibadah. When a person comes into the masjid, you make niyyah that I'm in i'tikaf as long as I'm in the masjid. So not only are you getting reward for coming to the masjid, but every second you're inside, you're sitting, you're doing whatever, you're performing salah or just quiet, just sitting, then ibadah is it's counted as ibadah. But you have to make the niyyah of i'tikaf. So inshallah, let us make the niyyah of i'tikaf. Every time you sit in the masjid, if it's a 1 minute, make niyyah for i'tikaf. It's a nafil i'tikaf. You don't break it. You break it by leaving and it's finished. So, it's just our limits. If you don't make that niyyah, we make the niyyah, these tips and in the masjid is rewardable when you make that niyyah. And then there's nothing to it. You just have to avoid, the things that you have to avoid for i'tikaf. Just imagine that I'm in i'tikaf and I'm worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't talk and joke and all of these things in the masjid, and just observe the rights of the masjid. You're going to get residual thawab just by making the i'tikaf. So you don't have to make the niyyah in Arabic. You can make it in English. Oh Allah, I am in i'tikaf as long as I am in the masjid. So this is a nafal i'tikaf. So this is a very beautiful thing. Some scholars actually they would teach people when they would come into the masjid, they would recite this out. They would step in with the right foot. They would give salam to everyone, and then they would say, "Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Allah." And they would say all the people listening, they were making all these niyas, and they would learn to make the niyyah as well. So this is something that we can do a lot more thawab than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us so many methods. You just do one action, it's multiplied by 700. Today in the Jumu'ah khutbah, we talked about the fact that Sawm is such a rewardable action that for every type of ibadah, whether it's salah, zakah, hajj, we know there's a specific amount, a minimum of 10 rewards, minimum of 10. You won't get one reward for salah. You minimum at least will get 10 and a maximum of 700. And it goes even beyond that depending on ikhlas and the niyyah. But we know there's a number, there's, 10 to 700, around that range, generally speaking. When it comes to Sawm, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, because no one knows when you're really fasting. It's not something you can see. If it's not Ramadan and you see someone, you don't know if they're fasting or not. So this is a lot of ikhlas in this type of ibadah. Only Allah knows who's fasting. Because of that, only Allah knows how much the reward of fasting is. So in the hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari, Allah in Hadith Qudsi, Allah says, فَالصِّيَامُ لِي وَأَنَا جِزِي. Fasting is for me and I will give the reward. No one knows exactly what the reward is, but it's going to be something really great. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give that reward. So likewise, just by one fast, we can't tell how much reward we're going to get. Just by making the niyyah of i'tikaf every time, and the hereafter we'll see so much more just because we made that niyyah. Allah give us tawfiq to make this niyyah of i'tikaf every time we go to the masjid. For also to give us and those tawfiq to and وصلى الله تبارك وتعالى على خير خلق محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.